What if Elvis Presley, the king of rock, stumbled upon the haunting voices of forgotten blues artists? Join us in uncovering the tale of how he risked everything to reignite their legacy with a secret comeback album that changed music history forever. Picture this. The year is 1970, and the world thinks they've seen the last of Elvis Presley, the king of rock, the man whose very name was synonymous with rebellion, charisma, and raw musical talent, had taken a step back from the limelight. But hidden away in the dusty corners of a forgotten studio deep in the heart of the music world, he's cooking up something new, something that might just reignite the fire within him and make its way to the hearts of a world that yearns for authenticity in music as the sound. His guitar fills the silence, a feeling washes over him like a wave crashing upon the shore. It's the pulse of something that has long been eclipsed, a genre that never got its due respect. The blues wandering through the unfamiliar studio, he discovers old tape-stuttered, faded bundles of sonic history filled with the raw emotional power of forgotten blues legends' names that have faded into obscurity. Tales lost in the silence of time. With a flick of the switch, Elvis brings the past to life, and from these tapes spill out the haunting voices of artists who never received their due. Their cries resonate through the darkened room, stories of heartache, joy, resilience, and a longing to be heard again. Who were they? These were the greats of blues, steeped in pain and yet somehow transcendently powerful. Their stories leak through the speakers. Tales of hardship, triumphs in the racially divided South, all wrapped in melodies that can heal hearts and bring communities together. Each spitting crackle of the tape flares up old scars and stirs Elvis' heart. It's almost as if they're speaking directly to him, calling for release, imploring him to lend them a voice once more. As he listens, the urgency of their cries resonates deep within him. They want their stories told, and they want the world to remember them. Inspired by the powerful emotions carried in those tapes, Elvis devises a daring plan. This album he's about to record won't just be his comeback. It will be a tribute and homage to the very roots of rock and roll itself. It's a gamble, yes, a double-edged sword. When word gets out that Elvis is reviving the stories of these artists, the establishment could turn against him, branding him a traitor to his genre. Critics might dismiss it as a mere publicity stunt or an act of desperation, a grab for relevance in a world that appears to be moving on. But Elvis knows, in the pit of his being, that these voices deserve more than to remain buried in shadows. They deserve a spotlight, a stage, where their stories can resonate just as loud as they did in the heights of their glory. With that fervor, he begins to weave their melodies and stories into his own music. The studio hums to life as old tunes intertwine with new rhythms. He brings in surviving blues musicians, inviting them into this sacred space to share their experiences and enrich the sound with their spirit. Each heartbeat of the music echoes with determination, each chord a reminder of the struggles these artists faced, many predating even his own rise to fame. Tension spikes as he prepares to release the album. What will the public say? What will critics think? His reputation hangs in the balance, a beautiful mess, balancing on a precipice between past and present. Meanwhile, his heart races with a mix of trepidation and excitement. Finally, the moment arrives, the album drops, and the world is shaken. Awake listeners are hit with a sound that feels both new and timeless, a beautiful blend of bluesy foundations laid by earlier legends, combined with the rock-infused energy that Elvis was known for. Suddenly, the past flows into present consciousness, and the names of artists who once influenced Elvis himself echo through living rooms, radio stations, and juke joints. Everywhere voices long forgotten are resurrected. They sing in harmony, once more weaving a tapestry of sound that speaks to a generation. The resurgence in blues ignites cultural conversations about race, artistry, and legacy, woven tightly through stories shared in music. All this while, amid the jubilation, Elvis looks back to the mysterious old tapes scattered like memories on the studio floor, and it hits him these tapes have made him realize that true music isn't just a performance or a paycheck. It's about pushing boundaries, challenging societal norms, and breathing life back into the forgotten souls of the past, whose art inspired generations. Elvis's comeback is not just about him. It's a revival, a reawakening of an entire genre, a cultural renaissance that reshapes music history for future generations. As radio stations spin the album in heavy rotation, the legacy of these blues artists begins to truly come alive. Their soulful stories echo through Elvis's music, reminding the world of the power of collaboration and the importance of remembrance. They prove that every tale deserves to be told and celebrated, that every hurt carries with it the potential for healing through music. This is not just Elvis's rebirth. This is a glorious renaissance, covering the rich tapestry of music unity and shared histories, and it all started with a secret album in an abandoned studio, where lonely voices found their dute filling the air with dreams once lost now fulfilled their melodies soaring high once more. Picture this. The year is 1970, and the world thinks they've seen the last of Elvis Presley, the king of rock, the man whose very name was synonymous with rebellion, charisma, and raw musical talent, had taken a step back from the limelight, yet hidden away in the dusty corners of a forgotten studio deep in the heart of the music world. He's cooking up something new, something electric, that might just reignite the fire within him and reach the hearts of a world that desperately seeks authenticity in music. As the sound of his guitar fills the silence of the studio, the creative energies seem to swirl around him. Suddenly, he stumbles upon old tapes stuttered worn, and holding within them the unbridled emotional power of forgotten blues legends. These voices were names that once echoed proudly, now reduced to fleeting memories, their stories woven into the fabric of music history, but forever silent in the mainstream. With a flick of the switch, Elvis awakens the past. A flood of tones spills from the speakers, wrapping him stories of heartache, joy, and the kind of resilience that could only come from a life steeped in struggle. These artists, the greats of blues, each had a story to tell, steeped in pain, and yet incredibly transcendent in its purity. Their voices resonate with tales of hardship, the triumphs and trials faced in the racially divided South, the fervent passions that drove them to create music that could heal hearts and bridge divides. They are calling out, asking for release, eager to step back into the light. Each crackle of the old tapes rekindles old emotions within Elvis, as if the spirits of the artists are imploring him, "Lend us your voice to share our stories." Inspired by this revelation, he devises a bold plan. The album he will release will not solely mark his return to the music scene. It will serve as a tribute, a heartfelt homage to the very roots of rock and roll that birthed him. But this is no small risk. His decision is layered with potential peril. If word gets out that Elvis is revitalizing the legacies of these artists, the traditionalists and critics will surely turn against him. He's seen the industry react harshly to any artist who dares venture outside the established norms. Critics could easily label this an ill-conceived publicity stunt, or worse, a frantic attempt to cling to relevance in a world that seems to be evolving beyond him. However, deep down, Elvis knows these voices deserve more than mere acknowledgement in his personal career narrative. They deserve to shine brightly in their own right, reclaimed and treasured for future generations. With that fire in his heart, he begins passionately weaving their melodies and stories into his album, crafting an intricate tapestry of sound that honors the past while distinctly marking his own evolution as an artist. The studio hums to life, vibrating with the rhythm of old tunes, blending seamlessly with new compositions, and Elvis invites surviving blues musicians into this sacred space. He creates a collaborative environment, urging them to share their experiences and enrich the sound with their unique perspectives. Each heartbeat of the music echoes with determination, the chords layered not just with his influence, but with the rich histories and cultural nuances of the bluesmen whose stories must be reclaimed. Tension builds as the release date looms ever closer. What will the public think? Will they accept this blend of genres, or will they turn away? What will the critics say? And how will it impact his standing in the music industry? His reputation hangs in a delicate balance, a beautiful chaos, teetering on a fine line between past expectations and future possibilities. The uncertainty brings a tremor of excitement, mixed with dread to his soul. The anticipation and pressure sharpen, finally culminating in the moment he had been waiting for. The album is launched, and the world is awakened to its sound. Listeners suddenly find themselves confronted with a sonic experience that feels both fresh and familiar and exhilarating. Mix of bluesy foundations intertwined with the rock-infused energy. Elvis made famous, the past pours over the present, intertwining seamlessly in living rooms, bars, and music venues across America. The names of forgotten artists once more make their rounds in conversation, echo gloriously among fans. Last forgotten voices are resurrected from obscurity as they sing in harmony again, their narratives woven into a soundscape that speaks powerfully to a rising generation. The resurgence in blues ignites vital cultural conversations around race, artistry, and legacy. knitting together these artists' stories with Elvis's own as they reflect the struggles of their time and shared humanity. Amidst all this jubilance and recognition, Elvis cannot help but glance back at the old tapes that started it. All this experience has driven home an important realization to him: true music isn't merely a carefree performance designed for superficial pleasures or mere financial gain. No, it's about pushing boundaries, challenging societal norms, and reigniting life within voices long silenced by time. Here, Elvis's comeback transforms into a revival of an entire genre, a profound cultural renaissance destined to reshape music history, enriching the lives of generations to come. With radio stations spinning the album on repeat, the legacy of these blues artists begins to truly flourish once more. Their soulful stories echo through every note of Elvis's music, proving the power of collaboration and the necessity of remembrance. Each tale deserves to be embraced and celebrate. Every heartache carries with it the healing power of music. This is not just a chapter in Elvis's career. This represents a glorious renaissance, showcasing the rich tapestry of music unity and shared histories. It all sprouted from a secret album in an abandoned studio, where lonely voices found their due, filling the air with long-lost dreams, now revived their melodies, soaring high, touching lives once again. As Elvis sat in the dim light of the studio, a mix of excitement and trepidation coursed through him. This was not merely about the music. This was about carving a path for these forgotten artists, a chance to resurrect their legacies and breathe new life into a genre that shaped the very foundation of rock and roll. In the weeks that followed the album's release, he turned from a performer to a curator, a humble vessel through which the past could speak. Fans flocked to hear the new sounds, their eager faces a kaleidoscope of hope, nostalgia, and hunger for something real. Unlike other albums that floated into the world like mere commodities, this one had purpose, a righteousness that came from honoring the source of his artistry, and he felt every ounce of that weight. But the praise was not without consequence. The same industry that had once celebrated him now began to murmur in discontent, skeptics lining up to voice their displeasure over Elvis's perceived betrayal. Phrases like cultural appropriation began to swirl through conversations, critiquing his audacity to lend his fame to artists he didn't even share a lifetime with. It cut deep, each word an arrow aimed not only at his music, but directly at his identity, at who he was as an artist and a man. In those hushed moments of doubt, the old tapes became his sanctuary. Each time he replayed the raw emotional tones, he remembered why he embarked on this journey in the first place. These artists poured their lives into their music, and each note carried with it the weight of their struggles, their triumphs, their humanity. It reminded him that he didn't just have a voice. He had a responsibility to ensure these stories were told, and as his own identity wrestled with intrusive criticisms, he found solace in an unexpected ally. His fans, they rallied for him, fervently defending the album and celebrating the revival of forgotten blues artists. They shared stories of how the music resonated beyond race and genre, how it transcended the very walls built by society. For every critic trying to smear him, there were 1,000 voices singing his praises. Concerts became more than just performances. They turned into communal experiences, celebrations of a united front of expression. Time rolled on, and just as things seemed to settle, tragedy struck. The news broke that one of the blues artists he had treasured, a legendary vocalist whose voice had graced the tapes, had passed away. Elvis felt the impact like a sledgehammer against his chest. A heaviness settled over him, the kind of loss that left a void, a silence where so much color once thrived. The tributes poured in, each one a reminder of the fragility of life and the fleeting moments that once ignited the soul. And suddenly, the music felt heavier, the weight of preservation deeper. In the midst of mourning, he forged forward with renewed purpose, fueled by the loss. If there was anything he wanted to achieve, it was to ensure this artist's legacy was immortal, echoing not only through his music, but through future generations who may never know their names. Without his efforts to spotlight them, this feeling ignited a fire within him, and he vowed to create a follow-up album, a compilation that would shine a wider light on blues artists who shaped the genre and whose stories deserve to live on. He re-immersed himself in the archives, digging deep into personal histories, unearthing the struggles that influenced the very fabric of their music. The experience became more than just a sonic endeavor. It transformed into a pilgrimage to honor those who had come before him, to ensure their contributions to music never faded into the ether. As he moved through the creative process, the walls of the studio witnessed a transformation, the air crackled with urgency, the spirit of collaboration hung thick a bone-deep understanding that transcended mere sounds. Elvis brought more artists into the fold this time, not just as collaborators, but as storytellers. Each session became a workshop of sorts infused with laughter, learning, and a shared passion for the craft. For every melody, crafted stories emerged woven like threads into a grand tapestry of sound. As these artists shared their lives and experiences, Elvis realized he was not only giving them a home in his music, but he was also becoming a part of theirs. The boundary blurred, and what emerged was a magnificent collage of blues, rock, and the human experiential intermingling and breathing as one. This was the music of resilience, the sound of tenacity. Finally, as the second album neared completion, he felt a familiar flutter in his chest. Once again, they stood on the precipice of public perception. Would the world embrace this next wave? Or was he stepping too far into uncharted waters? This time, there were no old tapes to guide him. Instead, the weight carried was made up of real friendships, real stories, and the consciousness that every note played would honor those who came before. When the album dropped, it was unveiled to a world that was ready and hungry for the authentic. Listeners were swept in like a tidal wave, finding themselves transformed in the sacredness of the sound, erupting in their ears, with each track embodying a piece of history, a piece of a life once lived. Fans hailed it as a cultural event. Societal conversations ignited once more, examining how music mattered, how it united, and how it told stories lost in time, as well as those currently unfolding. Elvis found himself in the spotlight of a movement, a rebirth that felt less about fame and more about the music, the stories that stitched together lives, struggles, and triumphs across generations. It was an exploration of fate and artistry, a journey anchored in mutual respect and appreciation, piecing together not just an album, but a legacy of voices immortalized for future listeners. As the years rolled on, Elvis understood the true meaning of his journey. It was more than a comeback or a revival. It fostered a cultural renaissance that reshaped perceptions of music, art, and belonging. It echoed until it reached a crescendo of shared history, as a glorious tapestry woven through time, always reminding us of the enduring bond between artist and audience, a celebration of unity and hope, reminding the world that no voice should ever be forgotten. From old tapes in an unassuming studio to the heights of cultural resurgence, this was a story that promised to live on, a continuous song that would never stop. Playing in the aftermath of Elvis's transformative experiences, he found himself standing at the crossroads of history and ambition, realizing the power that lay within the music to transcend barriers and claim its rightful place in society. As the years unfolded, the world began to witness not just a resurgence of blues, but the revitalization of the very essence of humanity that arisen through music. Memories of the old masters continuously surfaced in his mind, whispering words, unuttered heartaches, long forgotten, and melodies that should never have faded away. Each day that passed, he felt the weight of this responsibility more profoundly, a sense of urgency pushing him forward. It became essential not only to tell the stories, but to also ensure they were not lost to the sands of time. So he sought to craft a complementary documentary, a visual timeline that would chronicle both his journey and the journeys of those brilliant but overlooked artists whose voices became his guiding lights. As Elvis immersed himself in the production of this film, he quickly recognized the stories he covered were not solely nostalgic reflections. They represented living history, embodying the struggles faced by not just the blues artists, but by entire communities. This was a chance to share their battles and triumphs, to humanize them, to connect them to the present-day audiences, who needed to recognize the sacrifices that paved the way for their freedom of expression. With each interview and archival footage, reality began to collide with the historical narrative he had wished to present. The older generations came forward to share heartfelt memories of musicians they adored, whom time had all but erased from the public's consciousness. This unfolding mosaic of voices articulated beautiful resilience and love for the music that made it all possible. It ignited a spark within Elvis, inspiring him to curate each scene with purpose, to hone in on their experiences while genuinely representing their truth. The documentary allowed him to become a facilitator of dialogue, creating spaces for the community to reflect and share honest conversations about race artistry, and the significance of preserving the past, he ventured out to blues festivals, juke joints, and local bars where the air was thick with history, and the stories spun out like the melodies still hanging in the air each visit, reinforced the notion that this music, this culture was far from past tense. It thrived pulsating in its veins, awaiting its rightful acknowledgement. By bringing the music back to where it had originated, Elvis created a bridge that connected the new generation with the artists of the past, showcasing that those threads once woven in the fabric of his own artistry could not simply be unraveled or forgotten. Through this documentary, endeavor those reluctant to engage with their past were conversing with hearts newly opened. Finally, the day arrived when Elvis premiered the film, an intimate gathering filled with a blend of family, friends, and fans from all walks of life. Hope and anticipation hovered in the room, lent additional space by the flickering light illuminating the faces around him. He took a deep breath, looking around, witnessing the unity that music had forged amid uncertainty. As the projector flickered to life, images of blues legends ignited the screen, echoing their stories. Viewers transitioned from rapt appreciation to deep empathy. They were anchored within the emotion of the narratives, unfolding before their eyes. Joy mingled with profound sorrow, experienced within a spectrum of unshakable resilience. To overcome in these moments, laughter erupted, tears flowed. Hearts were opened wide. His documentary transformed the environment, becoming proof that true artistry has the power to reanimate history, to strike chords of memory among its witnesses. It became a testament to the significance of hearing those voiced, reclaiming lives once lost, gaining the insight of our shared humanity through music and experiences that bled into every note, played, every story told. Yet just as Elvis began to feel the collective healing power of this event, reality reminded him that preserving these legacies would require constant effort. The reception was overwhelmingly supportive, but still challenges awaited around every corner. Critics continued to raise concerns, insistently questioning the authenticity of his participation in a narrative that was not solely his own. But with each response came clarity. He wasn't there to overshadow or strip ownership from these artists. He was offering a lifeline, an opportunity for those long voiceless to be heralded, valued, and remembered. Through his platform, the music industry began to understand that appreciation could coexist with admiration. For previous generations, lines of ownership could blur. The unity of artistry could thrive when regions of influence seamlessly combined, the sounds morphing from guitars, pianos, and human voices reflected an evolving genre rooted in blues, yet reaching out toward the vibrancy of modernity. Together they forged new styles and paved pathways that enlivened the spirit of collaboration. Elvis witnessed a renaissance fueled by those daring to voice their truths, challenging societal norms, stirring resting spirits, and pushing boundaries across a multitude of genres, generations, and races. The reality of his decision to elevate blues artists reshaped not only his career, but also reignited an entire community's shared legacy, sincerely shining a light on their too often neglected contributions. Media outlets began depicting deeper culture features, focusing on the influence of the blues within modern pop, rock, and R&B music, while consistently rooting back to its origins. Attention shifted toward documentaries, expos, and podcasts, showcasing the journeys of those who came before, alongside the development of his work and reputation among the music industry. The conversations surrounding artistry extended beyond Elvis. They encouraged widespread collaborations across multiple movements, inspiring artists to reflect on their roots, to consider who had paved their roads to fame, and to honor those with a heart that beat before theirs. Backed by the powerful resurgence of blues and its artists, a new generation began to realize that their legacies were interconnected, tagging their own fingerprints across time, and every artist noted a profound transformation occurring not only within the industry, but within communities, making strides toward recognition. This collective journey infused strength across the musical spectrum. Amid the constant flow of new sounds and rhythms, Elvis embraced the reality that the most beautiful music arises from an intricate musical tapestry woven from various strands of life, all interdependent and alive with stories, love, and endless potential. As he continued to reflect upon the old tapes that inspired him, he could hear their voices carrying a universal truth that every song deserves to be sung, every artist deserves to be remembered, and all legacies deserve to be lived in harmony, with one another forever intertwined in time. And so, as the beats grew louder and harmonies soared higher across stages worldwide, a cultural rebirth spread. Beyond him, amplifying voices echoing through generations, it was a compelling narrative sweetly chronicled against a backdrop of soulful melodies, where those who sang before, and those who sang now celebrated and contended for their rightful place within the rich tapestry of music. A reminder that once the music flows, it could never truly be silenced. What do you think of Elvis's daring decision? Would you dive into this untold legacy? Let us know your favorite part in the comments.